Welcome to LeicsChat. This is episode 4 of our series of How to Adult. My name is Bethan and I work in support, and I'm joined today by Maddie, who is one of our alumni. Maddie, do you want to introduce yourself? So say what you studied at Leicester and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Maddie. I studied BSc Criminology at the University of Leicester and I graduated last July. Since then, I've worked 2 jobs and I've currently been in my role for a year, and I work as an account executive in public relations.
Great. So this episode is going to be all about job searching and the graduate blues that may or may not come with that job searching period. So we know that quite a few students are worried at the moment about the current job market and what's coming up. And I'm sure there's plenty of graduates who might be listening who have experienced this as well. So we're going to be covering all of that today with some frequently asked questions as well as some expectations versus reality. So to start off with, our first topic is all about the initial job searching moments. So how did you find your initial job search when you initially graduated?
I found the initial job search period quite challenging. I graduated and I'd already had a batch of graduate scheme applications that I did, and none of them worked out. I got to various stages like application centres and different online tests, but it didn't work out, which I now see was for the best. But then that meant that approaching graduation, I didn't have anything lined up and I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do, which was probably the most challenging thing. I was moving to London with my partner who had a job lined up. So that was quite daunting, not having a clue and not having anything and committing to rent. So it was quite challenging. So I spent 3 weeks by myself in my flat in London applying to jobs, not hearing back from a lot of them and just getting rejection after rejection, really. And then I got a job interview somewhere and managed to get the job. It kind of felt like I breezed it a little bit, which was really, really good. And it kind of felt like everything was just falling into place. And I got this job, moved to London, brilliant. Graduate life was going to be really easy. But then a month went by in this job and I left because it wasn't working out for me. It just wasn't the right kind of workplace and I wasn't enjoying it. And luckily I had a job to fall back on at my dad's public relations firm, which is where I am now. So I was on a 3-month contract initially. So I was still applying for jobs, but I was still just trying to work out what it was that I wanted to do. And I don't think anyone prepares you for the fact that, yeah, you can face rejections and that's one whole challenge in itself, but the whole initial working out what it is you want to do, you can't get rejected from jobs if you don't know what you want to apply for and don't end up applying. So it was really challenging and you doubt everything that you've ever done leading up to that point. You question what A levels you even chose and what degree you chose, because it didn't seem like I wanted to go into criminology at that point. So I think that was probably the most challenging thing. And then knowing where to look itself as well. There's just so many different elements of it that I just found really difficult.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So would you say that you started your job search toward the end of 3rd year or beginning, or?
So it was at the beginning of 3rd year that I did lots of graduate scheme applications because I think that was just one of those things that would offer a really nice safety net. So if I didn't know what to do, that was fine because I'd already got onto this grad scheme or whatever. And being in criminology, I decided to apply for the public sector things, so within government and MI5 even, and all of those types of things, and social work. So that was probably the September to the Christmas of 3rd year, and then got rejected from pretty much all of them. And then I left it until the July to start applying again.
Yeah, I feel like I had similar experience in that I just wasn't prepared at all at either stages of application. So I said on the previous episode that we did for this that I did an undergraduate, but I also did a postgraduate degree. And part of that came from just not being prepared with job applications from my undergraduate. So I only started around, I'd say, March of my final year, which is quite late to start thinking about it. But I'm sure quite a few 3rd years could relate to this. I just didn't want to think about it. The thought of graduating, having to make my way in the job world, it just seemed really daunting. And I think I was just so focused on my dissertation, the commitments that I already had at university. It just seemed like something that I had to worry about toward the end of the year. And then on the flip side, like I try to be more proactive in my master's, and what you were saying about grad jobs and everything, I got to various levels with that. Some of them I, got down to like the final interview on and things, and none of them worked out. But again, like I think even now when I'm making job applications, like I'm within marketing, like you, public relations marketing sector. But sometimes I question myself, like, is that even something I definitely want to be doing? Like, am I making the right choices? It is a lot of pressure to think about, especially if you asked, like you did criminology, I did American studies for my undergrad. They're not necessarily degrees that you think this is definitely going to be a line of work I go into. I guess people who do stuff like Occ Health or maybe even things like physics, they maybe had a career in mind that they wanted to go with. I literally had no clue. People used to ask me what I wanted to be when I was older, when I was younger, and I think I used to just say like a university student. I hadn't really thought past that. So I didn't have like this massive dream. I didn't have like a set idea. I knew I wanted to work internationally because I'd seen other people older than me do that, and I thought it was really cool. But apart from that, I really didn't have a clue. So I don't know, what would be your tip for someone who, like me, doesn't have a clue, who's maybe doing a humanities or a social science, like where to even start with thinking about stuff?
So yeah, as you said, I was the same as you, and I did criminology, and then I've now gone into a more creative field with it, which probably isn't the typical route to take. And I think that came from all of the extracurricular stuff that I did at uni. So alongside my degree, I sat on a few committees. I started a society, which was the Entrepreneurial Society, and I got heavily involved with the Innovation Hub at the University of Leicester. So I was meeting with all other entrepreneurs and finding out what they had to offer. I also started a little business while I was in my third year, painting plant pots, which was just kind of my little stress relief from doing my dissertation, and also just another way to make a bit of money on the side. But doing that, I had to increase my knowledge of social media and marketing and just talking with customers and stuff. So that gave me a real insight into A, being creative, and B, running my own thing. So it was definitely those other little bits and bobs that I did that really informed what I wanted to do and what I wanted to go into. And as you say, now I'm in public relations, and I'm a little bit like, it's really great. I do enjoy it. I love writing, so it's really plays to my strengths. But is it what I want to do for 40, however many years? I don't know. So in my spare time, I run a blog that helps graduates kind of find their feet in the world. And whenever anyone asks me that, or my big advice for it is to take open a notebook or something, jot down 10 things that you absolutely love doing, and it doesn't have to be related to a job or anything at all, just 10 things that you love. So it could be running, it could be drawing, it could be cooking, anything. And then going through the list and ranking it in priorities, and then Googling jobs that involve, and going through your prioritized list and seeing what jobs come up. And then from the jobs that come up, typing one of those into a job searching platform like LinkedIn or Reed or Target Jobs or anything, and reading the job description and your like day-to-day responsibilities, and seeing if that's something that you would want to spend 35 to 40 hours a week doing. Because that's the only way that you can get a real insight, I think, is looking at specific jobs in that sector. So if you're not going to want to do something in your spare time, you shouldn't translate that into a job, because you probably don't have the passion for it. So work out what it is that you love doing in your day-to-day life and see if that translates into a job, because I think a lot of people would be surprised at how many different jobs there are out there. And it takes a little bit of sitting down, getting to know yourself and getting to know what's out there. And you might just stumble upon something that you've never heard of before. You read the requirements for a job and you've got it all, and you read the day-to-day tasks and you think, wow, like that sounds brilliant, I'd love to do it. And then you have a little bit of what you want to do. I don't know if those sound like good suggestions to you, but that's what I do.
Yeah, no, they sound really good. I was just thinking as you were saying that as well, what something that I am still trying to teach myself when I'm looking at jobs and thinking about careers and everything is that it's okay if your first job or maybe your second job or whatever isn't your dream job. It's not in any way being a failure. It's not in any way like a step backwards, because the likelihood is whatever you're doing, there's going to be some form of transferable skill. And, for some people, a job is a job. Like all they want to do is like put food on the table, roof over their head, and what they do outside of that work, that's the most important to them. And that's completely okay as well, because I think there is a lot of pressure when you're a student to think, well, I've gone to all this effort of doing the degree, so therefore I must find this dream career that's, going to catapult me into this wonderful life. And that's okay if that's not always the case. Like plenty of people go through life, thinking their jobs are pretty crud, but are like really happy with everything that they've got outside of it.
Yeah, I can agree. And yeah, the whole notion of like finding your dream job at any point really is so far-fetched, especially when you've just graduated. And a year and a bit on, I'm slowly realizing that, and I don't even have a dream job in mind, let alone think I'd be able to find one. But yeah, even if you graduate and you end up working the same retail or hospitality job that you were in when you were 16, 17, that's not by any means failing at all, because as you say, you can get those transferable skills and you just get a bit more money in your pocket for the time being. But yeah, as you say, if they want to stay in that job for their whole career, but they know how to make good use of their spare time and they love and enjoy everything they do, then that's okay. There's so much pressure on jobs and being successful and becoming CEO in 5 years after graduating, but it's so ridiculous that people just need to take that step back and find things that they love doing separately as well.
I agree. Well, that brings us quite nicely into the next part that we were going to be talking about. How would you describe the term graduate blues?
I don't know how I would describe it, but it's very real, is what I would say initially. So it's just that feeling, for me anyway, of kind of loss of something. I think we spend 18 years or however long in education, and then suddenly you're just handed a certificate, or this year you're posted your certificate and you're told, right, that's it, everything you've ever known is over, and you're all just cast out into this world. And you think, well, that's not so bad. Like, I'm sure it'll work out. But as you said, sometimes it doesn't work out. And then you think, oh, well, I'll still have my friends and we'll be in touch. But it's not the same as at uni, because you don't all live down the same road anymore. And you can't go on nights out all the time because you have a job and you have responsibilities. And I think in terms of a physical feeling, it's kind of like nostalgia, but in a bad way. And you like look back on things and you really miss it, and you can't quite place where you're heading, but you can't really go back to that. I think that's probably how I say it is for me.
Yeah, I agree. I feel everyone has had some element of that after they graduate, even if they've moved with a bunch of friends to somewhere new, even if they've carried on with a partner they've had in university and they've still got that continuity. There's definitely that aspect of it in most people's lives, even so much as you said, not being able to go to bars as much anymore, not being able to live that life that they always had done. One of the main things I found when I left was that it's quite difficult to have hobbies when you first initially graduate, because especially if you're someone who had to spend quite a lot of time studying, maybe you haven't invested so much in the hobbies that you used to have when you were in school, and suddenly you have this free time. But the other thing I found as well is that anyone who's been quite involved in like either a sports team or society life, that was such a major part of your life and almost dictated your social life. And then suddenly you have to kind of drive it yourself. And what was a Wednesday night meetup, suddenly you have to create these group situations and find things to be invited to, or even, like I said, just like carrying on hobbies that you once had, because it's not as easy to suddenly join a fundraising group or to, go ahead and do a group sport meetup or something. They're very time consuming. And if you've got a job or other commitments, it is quite difficult. Have you found it that way at all?
Yeah, definitely. I wasn't on sports team kind of thing, but yeah, as you say, it's you kind of when you first go to university, you kind of think, oh, I'm great, like I'm great, I'm out here in the real world by myself, and university is going to be brilliant, and it's all what I'm going to make of it myself, and everything that happens is all my doing. But then you take for granted the fact that there is the students' union, and they have all of these groups and sport clubs and societies that you can go and join, but you don't really appreciate the fact that they're there, they're established, and they're there for you to go up and be and say to them, oh, I really want to join this and make friends, and then that's how it comes about. But yeah, you finish uni and suddenly it's so much more difficult to find like-minded people that enjoy doing the things that you want to do, especially if you move to a new city, because when I moved to London, I have friends kind of dotted around the outskirts, but obviously I started a job and I was there for a month, and I still talk to a few of the people there now, which is brilliant. But I started a job in Peterborough and still lived in London, so I didn't have the network of people. So we didn't finish work and go for drinks because I worked from home, or I had to catch a train back after work. So yeah, it's so hard to find those people that you get on with when they're not in your university bubble and the students' union aren't kind of helping to group you together. But yeah, it's just all on your own back to form that, and it's so challenging. And it's no surprise that for the majority of the last year, I've completely avoided doing that, and I just keep myself to myself. And yeah, it's a huge challenge.
Definitely. I feel even more so with everything that's been going on this year. I was thinking about this earlier, how there are some friends who I kind of accepted since we graduated that I am going to see less. But then suddenly, what was someone who I saw maybe 6 months ago when I was back in February, and I'll see them soon, maybe by Easter, then COVID hit. And I'm like, there are some people who I haven't now seen for a year and a half nearly. And it gets ridiculous. So when you think about how long that could go on for, and how do you then navigate all of that, it's always having to rebuild friendships again after it's all over. Yeah. Have you found it's easy to keep in touch with people via text? It made me realise how little me and my friends text normally. We have to make so much more effort.
Yeah, me too. So my kind of few best friends that I have, we never really used to text that much anyway, because we had those friendships that were really nice, and you pick it up after like 2 months and you get on so well still. I think this year as well, it's kind of shown me that if people aren't bothering and you keep on putting the effort in, it's kind of made me realise that I've got my friends that I know are my friends, and that's great. And I found it quite simple to keep up with those because there's so much less pressure there. But as you say, it's the people that you wouldn't have minded not seeing for 3 to 6 months anyway, and now it's going to have been like a year, and you wonder if you'll ever be able to properly rekindle those to what they were at university or afterwards. But yeah, I've been lucky enough to actually move in with my friends from uni since the pandemic happened. So I now live with my boyfriend and my best friend from uni,
nice.
Which is really nice because I spent most of the year at home because I had to move back. I'm sure a lot of people had to as well. So it's been really nice to have that friendship again, but it still doesn't feel the same as at uni because you go out for drinks, but you've got work the next day, and it's just all a little more adult, and it doesn't have the kind of university feel to it. But yeah, I think friendships is one of the challenging things after university that, again, no one really gives you a guidebook to it of how to keep your friendships strong, especially not during a pandemic.
Yeah, I guess my tip for anyone who's thinking that, and maybe, you know, the same as us of, oh my goodness, I just like lost most of my friends because of the pandemic. If we're both feeling like that, I'm sure like loads of other people are too, and the likelihood is your friends are as well. So I would just say, just keep like reaching out occasionally, because even if it's just a 10-minute conversation over Facebook Messenger, it's nice to kind of have those moments. And not everyone who you are good friends with has to remain like a really good friend. It's okay to have acquaintances.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just keep things going, because also in normal times you never know what someone's going through. Especially at the minute, you can't really say, oh well, they've not texted me for 4 months. make sure they're okay. Just drop them a text every now and then. There's no pressure to suddenly arrange like an entire event to see them in the future and have this like really flashy friendship, but even just like a hey, how are you doing, not heard from you in a while, it can just really help. And if you were to be the one that received that and you weren't feeling great, like, you know how special it is to feel like someone's looking out for you. So yeah, I agree, just keep going, and hopefully we'll be able to see each other again.
So thinking about graduate blues, how have you coped with that? How have you managed to not necessarily overcome, but keep going with it and make sure it doesn't get too much?
Probably just throwing myself into the things that I am doing as a graduate. So as I mentioned, I have my blog as well, where that's kind of like my little creative outlet for my graduate blues. So I talk about the topics that I really struggle with in terms of like careers and self-care. And I think it's really refreshing to know that so many people feel that way too. I just always get messages from people being like, oh, I didn't realize that other people felt that way. Like, it's really reassuring to know that it is actually a common problem, which it is. I'm sure everyone at some point has missed university, and whether they would call it graduate blues or not, everyone's had those feelings of what on earth am I doing now? I think over the last year, I've also just tried to adopt the mindset that everything will hopefully fall into place one day. And as long as I keep on working on the things I enjoy and believing in myself, especially when it comes to work, I struggle with imposter syndrome a lot. Just telling myself that I do deserve my job and I am good at it, and things might not be how I imagined them to be a year after graduating, but they will probably work out. So I don't always just ignore my feelings of missing university and not really having a handle on what my life is like as a graduate. I don't ignore them, but I definitely try to settle them by saying it'll all be fine. And yeah, trying to keep up a few things from university. So having hobbies is a really good idea, because then you've got something to throw yourself into. And yeah, work's a funny one as a graduate, because normally prepares you for the world of work. But yeah, I think it's just all about trusting the process and knowing that a lot of people are going through it too, and you will all be okay.
Yeah, I think one of the ways I've tried to cope with stuff when I've been missing student life and missing that side of things is trying to focus on and make the most of the things that I couldn't do as a student. Yeah. So obviously I'm making a little bit more than I would have done on a student staff wage. So I try once a month to replace something in my wardrobe, because I never really spent money on myself when I was a student, because I was really worried about that. I know not everyone's the same. I know plenty of people who got their misguided order most months, but I wasn't one of those students. So now, like, I'm looking at my wardrobe thinking, God, I've had some of this since A level. or earlier in some cases. So I either probably don't fit in them, or they look awful and they look like something that you dragged out of 2011. So let's start trying to replace these. And that's just kind of like a small fun thing for me to do. Like, even if it's just like 1 month I buy new packs of socks or something. If it's a financially suffering month, it might just be socks from TK Maxx. But like those moments, like I bought Fila trainers, so I'd never had like a pair of designer trainers, and that was just really exciting for me to have like a proper sports branded pair of trainers. But even things like, I don't know, because I was always doing stuff, I was quite like a involved student, I had societies or even just studying. Like I was someone who had to maybe do a bit more studying than others because I have a learning disability. I never got to have like pamper nights, so I really like buying like face masks, having longer showers than necessary, just doing little things like that, and knowing that is just my wind down on a Tuesday evening. So this is an area of the podcast that we do in each of these How to Adult series that is known as expectation versus reality. So yeah, Maddie, if you want to start with yours first.
Okay, so my expectation of job searching was that I was going to find this really fancy job that looked absolutely amazing for me, and I would apply and I would get it because I'd done really well in my degree. I got a first and I'd always done extracurricular things, and I thought, great, I've probably got quite a lot of experience. I've got direct experience to the role. It says they're looking for an entry-level graduate. What more could be perfect with it? And then probably the reality was that would never happen, because even though jobs advertise entry-level roles, they're actually looking for someone with like 30 years experience. And then they say to you that you don't have enough experience. And I think the expectation is just that you can get any job you want because that's what you've been working up towards and you've got this degree now. But then in reality, it's really tough and every other graduate feels the same. So that's probably my first one, is that you think you'll just land a job straight away, but you don't.
Yeah, I was definitely, that was something I had in mind as well. That was definitely an expectation of mine, and it didn't work out, as you said. On the flip side, though, I guess one of my expectations versus reality is that I assumed, when you see like the role and the things needed, like the essentials and everything, and you have to be experienced in all these areas, I assumed that was literally black and white. And so if there was something on that list I couldn't do, I just wouldn't apply for it. Whereas the reality of the situation, and something that I'm definitely learning more and more, even now as I'm applying to jobs, is that a lot of people who have made it in this world had faked it until they made it. So don't necessarily lie, but it's okay if you don't know how to do everything on that list, because you can learn on the job. And they just put that out as a blanket. It'd be good if you had all of these, but they know that not everyone, especially in the pay bracket and the level you're going into, are going to know all of that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think there's a stat somewhere about how I think women are less likely to apply for a role than a man if they don't have all of the criteria. And also, what's the harm in doing that anyway? What's the harm in sending off your application just because you don't have 3 years experience, you've got 2 or something? Just do it. They'll probably anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have another one at all?
Yes, I did, but it's just gone out of my mind. So my second one would be that the expectation was that you have to apply for like 20 jobs a day when everyone says that it's a tough market and you've just got to be in it to win it. And you think, oh my God, how am I going to churn out all of these applications and fit in all of these interviews and stuff? But then the reality is, and that I'm slowly learning if I apply for any jobs at the minute, is that you need to take your time with your applications, because you need to make sure that it really fits the job and you are really selling yourself, because that's the only way you're going to get your job, is if you make yourself stand out and if you really get across how perfect you are for the position. So if you're getting out 20 applications a day, you've got to ask yourself, are you actually putting that much effort and time into it? And if you're not, then why are you applying? So the reality for me was that maybe just try and do one a day, or just pick some roles that really look great to you, because the expectation is get a job, any job, but as well, in reality, you need to do a job that you love. So take your time over your applications, and it's not a numbers game, it's quality.
Yeah. So my last one would be, my expectation was that when you've completed a degree, you should try and find a job that's similar to that degree, or you're using that degree in some way within that specific subject area. And if you're not, then you've just wasted your degree. And that's still something that I'm like trying to convince myself now, like especially that I have a master's. It's almost worse this time, because I'm like, oh, you paid for that one. So you need to try and use it. Whereas reality, there are so many transferable skills within degrees, whichever ones you do. And you don't have to commit to some path. I feel like from year 9, especially in the UK, we're kind of funneled into picking a path for ourselves and sticking to that path. And, you need to work towards everything. I've even had some friends who have finished medicine degrees, started their time as a junior doctor, and are there going, I don't even know if this is what I want to do. And like I've said to them, like, it's okay if you don't. Like, yes, you have a medicine degree, brilliant, you are a qualified doctor, but if you wanted to change and go to lab work, or you wanted to change and do something completely different, that's okay, because at the end of the day you had to commit to that path at the age of 15, and that's a crazy age to try and commit to something like that. But even with my American studies, if I don't end up working in America, it's not the end of the world.
Definitely. That's a really, really important thing. And as you say, people get to like 28 and they've done 4-year degrees, and then they've got experience for 6 years. Well, I think that's probably the right maths. And then they're like, I really don't want to do this anymore. There's no shame in that. It's completely fine. And you've got the transferable skills to be able to do that. I did a criminology degree, but it doesn't mean I have to go into the police or into anything that deals with it. I learned so much about like written communication and being organized and time management. So the degree, the subject, it's what you study and what you learn about every day, but in reality it teaches you so much more. So I really agree. You can get any job that's unrelated or related.
Definitely. So you've already covered quite a bit anyway with the tips section we were going to do in terms of tips for coping with graduate blues, tips for job searching. Do you have any like final words of wisdom that maybe you would have written about in one of your blogs before in terms of students graduating? What would be your main tip for them now?
Well, my main tip would be do not panic. Don't panic if you don't have a job straight away, if you don't have a job or your dream job after a year. So just mostly do not panic. And then in terms of smaller little tips, especially with job searching and finding your career, look into doing something that you love and that you enjoy, or if you're not happy in your job, as we said earlier, find stuff that you love doing in your spare time, because then it'll take any feelings away if you don't like your job. Stay organised when you're job searching. Don't lose track of your applications. I've got a free job application tracker on my blog for anyone to go and download if they want to, because it's really important that you stay up to date with it. And having a tracker as well means that you can look at which stages you're consistently getting to but maybe not making it past. So if no one's ever responding to your CV and cover letter, look into getting someone to help you with it. Get in touch with the University Careers Service, anything like that. Or if you're not getting past interviews, maybe try and get some interview prep help from someone. Just always be looking at how you can make it better for yourself. But if you want to have a little cry because you didn't get your job that you wanted, then have a little cry, it's okay. But just keep your head up with everything, really, because it will all be okay in the end. And if it's not, then join the club, because there's a lot of lost graduates out there.
Definitely. Oh god, I always have a little cry. I'm always like, play it cool, like when they give me the rejection, I'm like, cool, have a great year, thank you for the opportunity. And then I like go off and I'm like, that's really upset me.
It is really upsetting though, because you can pour so many hours into an application, especially the further along you get. If they're asking, especially in like marketing and creative industries, if they're asking for visuals and pitches and stuff, and then after you've done so much work, they just send you an email that says, sorry, we've gone with another candidate, and you had your heart set on that job. It's horrible, but
So where can people find your blog? What's your plug?
So my website is mindthegapgraduates.co.uk, and that's my Instagram name as well. So I'm pretty active on those, and I just post tips about self-care, careers, and some finances stuff as well. So if anyone's feeling lost, come and say hey, and we'll just see where we get to together, really.
Great. And anyone who wants to check out the rest of our How to Adult series, we obviously have our podcasts coming out on Spotify and also accessible through the LeicsChat section of the website, and all of our written content is at www.leicesterunion.com/howtoadult. So thank you so much for joining me today, Maddie. It's been great to talk to you about all this, and hopefully students and graduates will have gotten some tips from this and maybe feeling a bit better about either graduate blues that are going to be coming up or the ones that are currently suffering.
Thanks so much for having me on. It's been really nice to talk to you about it, and it'll get better in the end to anyone listening that's feeling a little bit confused.
Yeah, definitely. Bring on 2021.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Maddie. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.